Alright, y'all, so today I want to do a very quick video. Today I'm going to be discussing DC's Earth 1 Green Lantern, Volume 1 and 2. It's written by Grant Hardman and Conir Beko, with art by John Boyd, if I'm saying that name right. This book came out back in like 2018 to 2020 and only had 2 volumes. So, Earth 1 is an imprint, right? The basic premise and gist of this line was basically to make graphic novels and reinvent the classic DC superheroes. And I've reviewed all of them at this point, and some of them do absolutely showcase that. You have like Earth 1 Teen Titans, which was like a pretty radical different take on Teen Titans, but sometimes not for the best. And then you got some like Earth 1 Superman, which did change a lot, but also not incredibly different from the main continuity. And Wonder Woman more being of a classic Golden Age version of the character, more of like a reminder of what she used to be. But if I have to say, like, out of this whole entire imprint, what book represents Earth 1 the best? I'm going to have to say this book, Earth 1 Green Lantern. This book, just to give you my initial thoughts, it's fantastic. This was actually the only Earth 1 title that I read a little bit previously on. And I actually read both of them finally for this video. And I have to be honest with you, this book is awesome. I'm going to get into some of the pros and some of the cons for these comics. But for the most part, my impression is this is a fantastic version of Green Lantern. Now, just for a disclaimer, if you know anything about Green Lantern and comics and war and history, this is going to be a very radically different take on Green Lantern War, right? There's a lot of changes that the writers make here that are very radically different. But I think most of the changes here actually work extremely well. For example, Hal Jordan, he's a different character here. He's not exactly the macho, cocky pilot that we've seen him in some of the continuities, right? Here, he's a miner in space, unwilling to go back to Earth and handle his problems. He's, I wouldn't say stoic, he's just very humble throughout the book, and he just wants to inherently do what's right. Not necessarily because he thinks he's better than everyone else, but because it's the right thing to do. And Hal Jordan in a lot of Green Lantern comics, I've noticed, and some other media, it's kind of a very fine line with his personality, because sometimes he can cross into that, oh, I'm a macho man like personality, right? But here, the way he's written in this book, I thought it was a very good fine line they didn't cross, and he was very well written. I also like the setting. It's not really set in like the traditional like modern day world, right? This is set in like kind of a futuristic world where space travel has become more accessible. You know, they're actually mining asteroids and stuff for minerals. There seems to be some kind of corporate government kind of entity ruling the earth, and there's a lot of like division and problems going on back at home. So like it's a very interesting and like futuristic world that's in this book. And I really love that. It's a very different take from Green Lantern, because like I said, Green Lantern is mostly set in modern day. Now, the first volume is all really just an origin story. Instead, you know, in most continuities, the ring shoot, like basically the guy who previously holds the Green Lantern ring, like, you know, most continuities, Abin Sur, you know, he dies. He's like, the ring has chosen you, Hal. In this book, that's not the case. Actually, the rings don't choose anybody here. They make their own, like, basically anybody can have a Green Lantern ring. And I honestly thought that was really a cool change, because if you think about it, having Hal, you know, you're destined to be the Green Lantern, it's kind of like an interesting case study. It's like, okay, well, he's destined to be a hero, but what if it's like, that's not really what happens, right? What if it goes awry? You know, and plus it's like, you're not really allowed, like, you're kind of like, due to fate, you're not really allowed to like choose if you actually want to be a hero or not, right? While in this comic, the rings, like I said, there's no such thing as the ring chooses you. Anybody can choose, like, anybody can have the ring, for better or for worse. And Hal kind of just stumbles upon it. His friend Volkov in the beginning of Volume 1 gets it, but then kind of kills himself. and then Hal sort of just inherits the ring. And I think that's a really fascinating and interesting change from the core Green Lantern mythology, and I really like it. And throughout the first volume, there's a lot of other things that happen that are very different. For example, in most continuities, Hal is introduced to Oa and the whole Green Lantern Corps, and they're a very established kind of space force that we know from the comics. Here, the Green Lanterns are pretty much wiped out. There's these machines called the Manhunters, who are basically machines that are designed to wipe out all Green Lanterns from the face of the galaxy. They go around exterminating lanterns. They go around exterminating whole planets too. So at this point, we're seeing like a really crazy scenario where the lanterns are not even a thing. It's really up to Hal, and he meets Kilowog in this book, who's also pretty great. And it's really up to them two to sort of rebuild the Green Lantern Corps and rebuild it from the ground up, right? And I don't know, I think that was a very fascinating take. Like I said, something that we've never seen with the Green Lantern. Because in most continuities, Oa's there, the Lanterns are pretty well established. Here, it's kind of like Hal and Kilowog, but mainly Hal here has to really rebuild the core from the ground up, literally. He's the one that goes to Oa, who in this continuity is like a slave planet with the Manhunters. He eventually does find like the core central battery that's still here from like the main Green Lantern lore. And basically, after talking with some lanterns throughout the book who say no to his request for help, they all sort of gather up to his cry of help and basically defeat the Manhunters and eventually get the central battery, and the Green Lantern Corps is kind of established again. And overall, I really liked this volume. I thought it was really good. I thought it, like I said, it's very different from the core mythology of Green Lantern, but it's not like the character's not recognizable here. It's still Green Lantern, but it's just radically different. It's like a new version of him. And I really enjoyed this story. I like these the Green Lanterns are in chaos, and Hal and Kilowog are the ones that have to really rebuild it, right? From the ground up. As hard as it can be, especially in situations where Hal even becomes a slave at some point to the Manhunters. Really fascinating stuff. Now, there's also an aspect of this where the Guardians are evil, as there's one Guardian here, as most of them were wiped out, and we realized that he was a banished Guardian because he had some kind of role in creating the Manhunters, which in this continuity are giant robots that kill the Lanterns. They also killed apparently a lot of the Guardians. And basically, this Guardian here, right, he wants to make the perfect galaxy. He wants to rule it so there's no sense of, really through oppression and fear, right? He's the one at the end of the book that creates the Yellow Lanterns, which we all know from the Green Lantern mythology. Kind of similar, but kind of not to the actual core mythology of Green Lantern. And the second volume takes place some time after. There's some kind of event where Earth is starting to open up to more alien species. And like I said, some time has passed. Apparently there was some kind of Manhunter invasion on Earth, but Hal and Kilowog prevented it. And there's some kind of inciting incident between the humans and a space alien race they're trying to initiate trade with. Something goes wrong, and everyone blames Earth for basically wanting to start a war with this random alien planet. Hal obviously knows there's something wrong with this. He knows that the humans in fire, there's something fishy. He tries to investigate the alien planet, but discovers the Yellow Lanterns. And at first, it's kind of weird here, but the Guardian is kind of going around recruiting people to become Yellow Lanterns, and it's not as explicitly, it's very complicit on how he gathers people. People just choose to be Yellow Lantern. Same thing with the Green Lantern here. The big difference here is that it seems like the Guardian has more control over them, and the rings are just more powerful with the yellow. And Hal makes a point that with that much power, you can do really crazy and horrible things to people. And it's not, like I said, explicitly shown, but we're kind of told that the Yellow Lanterns have done some bad things in this universe, and eventually you will see that the Guardians basically used them to wipe out the Green Lanterns and destroy the battery. And he kind of goes even crazier at the end, because Hal kind of tries to come up with a plan to stop the Guardian, but then we find out that the Guardian has created some kind of dimensional rift so to speak, because he wants to basically wipe out this whole reality and start over from scratch. So in his mind, he can make the perfect reality. Like I said, crazy stuff, crazy sci-fi mythos here. And Hal basically jumps into the pocket dimension that the Guardian was from, where he put basically the central battery. He didn't destroy it, apparently. Got enough power, destroyed it, caused a rift, sucking him and the Guardian into the other dimension, kind of ending the book. And the book kind of ends on a weird note. Jon Stewart's also in this book, by the way, I forgot to mention, and some other human characters. In this continuity, Jon Stewart has a yellow ring, but it doesn't seem to affect him at all. It just seems like it's just a more powerful ring compared to the green one. And like I said, it kind of ends on a little bit of a cliffhanger. You know, Hal's in the other dimension that's revealed he's still alive. I'm assuming with the Guardian. So setting up that, you know, maybe he can come back to the main continuity. Also, Jon Stewart comes back to Earth with the yellow ring, continuing with Hal started on Earth, because Hal's been trying to, like, achieve peace and equality on the planet Earth, because in his continuity he's a bit more crazy and futuristic. And the Yellow Lanterns, also in this book, you know, we're kind of told there was, like, a whole purge of them. Like, Yellow Lanterns would kill a lot of Green Lanterns because the Guardians told them to. And then they felt like, oh, we're being used when the Guardian left into the rift. And they basically some of them kind of just give up or kind of go away to form their own sects. Like I said, setting up for potential future stuff. So that's kind of my quick rundown from off the top of my head of the basic events of this book. Like I said, overall, this is a really fantastic book. I love the reinvention of the Green Lantern mythos. I even like how the Guardian here is the evil one. And, like, he's not evil in the sense that, like, oh, I just want to conquer the galaxy. It's just in his mind, he thinks that what he's doing is right. Like, he thinks, oh, by starting over reality itself, I can create the perfect society. Because his whole thing is that he wants to create all these people with rings so he can basically patrol and police the galaxy. And he just kind of goes way too far into it. And like I said, with the dimensional stuff, and Hal kind of has to stop him. It's a very interesting and cool take. I really liked it. The Yellow Lanterns I thought were pretty cool and interesting, especially how some of the Green Lanterns defected to them and how, like, Hal has questions about it. And Kilowog here also presents some interesting conundrums about it. My only problem, I would say, with the Yellow Lanterns here is they look pretty good, but I do think, I'm not sure if it's explicitly stated in the book, but one of my favorite things is that the Green Lanterns are based on emotion. So, like, for example, green is, like, I think hope, or no, excuse me, it's will. Green is for will, and then yellow is for fear. And I've always felt like that should have always had a factor into the Yellow Lanterns. In the book, it's kind of explicitly stated they joined the Yellow Lanterns for that reason, but it's kind of more casual, like, I just want more power. I wish there was more of an element with the Yellow Lanterns that involved fear. Like, oh, fear this and fear this, and a person being consumed by fear can become a Yellow Lantern. That's one of my favorite interesting things about the Green Lantern mythos. It's all based on emotions. And while these free will approaches some of the Rings mythos here, I just think it's not as evident. That's one of my little issues with the two volumes. It's just I do wish there was more about the emotions that these rings present and how they interact with people and affect people, right? Sinestro here too, he's part of the Green Lantern Corps. He joins the yellow one for different reasons. Like, he just wants more power here and more protection, which makes some sense, though. Like I said, the Yellow Lanterns here, they seem more powerful and controlled and manipulated by the Guardian, which kind of makes them obviously the bad guys here. But like I said, I wish there was more of an element that factored in their emotions and fear and stuff. But regards to that, that's really my only major flaw with the book. I think the art looks great. It looks really good. It looks like it's got this really rough and kind of gritty style throughout the book, but I think represents the good futuristic mechanical age that this book is trying to present very well. I think if it was done in, like, a more simpler style, it wouldn't work too well, right? The Green Lantern suit that Hal wears, it's kind of it's fine. I wouldn't say it's like my favorite suit. I do kind of prefer the classic brightly spandex Green Lantern suit from like the New 52 and like Jeff Johns run, but this is personal preference. I get it, this is a more darker and grittier world, so obviously having that suit probably wouldn't look too realistic, but it still looks pretty good. I do like some of the dilemmas and the characters that present here, right? I do like there's a lot of questions about power and like where that power should be used and for what purpose, especially when the Yellow Lanterns present themselves in the book. I thought it was really engaging. Especially like the Guardians' plan here. I thought it was really interesting and learning more about the plot and figuring more and more about what the Guardians' plans are and how Hal is trying to stop it was a really engaging part of the book. I also thought, like I said before, the themes of making your own decisions with the rings was a really powerful message in this book, especially in the first volume. I think it was one of my favorite new additions to the Green Lantern mythos here. And yeah, I don't know. Overall, this is a very fantastic book. To me, this is like kind of the crown jewel of the Earth One series. Like, if you want a real hardcore reinvention of Green Lantern, or excuse me, not just Green Lantern, but of DC classic superheroes, this is it. I mean, like I said, this is really the pinnacle of it. Like, this is really what the Earth One line, I think, really should have been. And I'm not saying it was a complete failure or anything, but this is really what the book should have been. Like, the series should have been. This is the pinnacle of quality, in my opinion. Another sad thing is that they're never going to make a Volume 3 to this series, which is such a shame because Volume 2 ends on a cliffhanger, right? So we're never going to exactly see how this story was ever going to finish. And it's a shame because like the writers and the artists had a plan for Volume 3, but it seemed for whatever reason DC just kind of canceled the plans. Not exactly sure why. I guess maybe it could have been sales or DC just not wanting to publish more of the Earth One imprint. Like I said, it was very strange because, when this book came out, it was really critically beloved by a lot of people, and I think it sold pretty well too. But, like I said, overall, just to quickly wrap this review up, this is a fantastic comic book. It's a fantastic reinvention of the Green Lantern mythos and lore. If you don't know anything about Green Lantern either, it's completely fine. Like, this is overall a good standalone story on its own. You'll be fascinated by what's going to happen in the story, how it tells its story and events, and like what twists and turns present themselves. If you're a Green Lantern fan or know anything about Green Lantern at all, you're definitely in for a treat if you read this book. Just some fantastic reinvention of the classic lore and mythology that I think you'll definitely get a kick out of. So yeah, that's my quick review of Earth 1 Green Lantern, Volume 1 and 2. All right, y'all. Peace. Have a nice day.